the whole concept of Truest Fan just doesn't come from baseball. It comes from love of family and love of God and love of the Cleveland Indians. So it's like this three, that maybe family and God come together really easily in many people's minds, but adding a baseball team in there makes it a little bit different and just makes it more fun.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly, and I am one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. Here at Abbey Research, we deeply believe that curiosity can change the world because it's the only thing that really ever has. We change how we see the world and each other through stories and relationships. And all of those things start with curiosity. So this series is in service of that. It's called Welcome to My World. And I get the absolute privilege of chatting to fascinating folks from all over the world who are different than me, which is literally everybody, about something in their lives that they know that if we knew, we could be fuller and richer humans and have a different human experience, because none of us really know how to human. We're all figuring it out as we go along. And so this series is to help us do that. And honestly, it's fairly selfish. I just love having these conversations, and I'm really excited to record them and share them with y'all. It's really great. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. Today, I am joined by Rob Brown, who has spent most of his career in the financial services industry as a top producing advisor as in senior leadership roles. Now he's a business coach, and he helps his clients achieve excellence while living more purpose-filled lives. He's an author, a devoted husband and father, and a lifelong Cleveland Guardians fan. Truest Fan is a story about turning the simple lessons we learned from baseball, listen, zero complaints here, lifelong Philadelphia Phillies fan, loving God and others into a way of living each and every day and encouraging others to do the same. We obviously have a lot in common. In his book, Rob shares the 7 most important lessons of the Truest Fan, and I can't wait to learn them. Rob, thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure. It's great to be here. I will make one connection, at least for the rest of the season. I'm a Cleveland Indians fan. I will exceed to be a Guardians fan when the time is appropriate, but I grew up an Indians fan and don't have any problem proclaiming that.
Okay, not a problem at all. So tell us about Truest Fan.
So Truest Fan is a book that I wrote because I wanted to write down what I thought were some of the most important things that I have learned through life in being a father, being a husband, being active in my church, working with my clients, so that I could leave some lessons behind to my daughters. I'm the father of triplet daughters, and I just thought it was really important that they understood some of the real core beliefs that I have. And they came out in this concept of being a Truest Fan, which is all about the idea of believing in ourselves and loving others more than we love ourselves. And that all comes from the love that we have from God.
Okay. And I can make the baseball connections in my brain because I know how much I love baseball, but where does baseball come into this?
So I'm a lifelong Cleveland fan. And being a Cleveland fan is not easy because in my lifetime, yep. You won World Series probably in your lifetime. In my lifetime, the Indians have never won the World Series, and sometimes it can be hard to follow a team that has kind of a history of not winning the big one, and having that loyalty, being a Truest Fan to a team, an organization that goes through lots of crazy changes. Go through a change like the name change that they're going through right now can be hard, but if you're a Truest Fan, you stick with those people, those things that are important to you, and you support them as best you can.
Yeah. And yes, we have won a World Series, and that's both beautiful and painful at the same time. Cause then you know what can happen and you see all the cracks and the fissures and you're like, guys, we were just here. we were just here and we did it okay. What the heck happened?
Right.
So it's a whole thing. But one of the things I think a lot about baseball and how it connects to our lives is that baseball is also full of rituals, right? Like it's not just the rules and the rhythms and everything else that being a Truest fan can bring out, but there's all the little tiny ways that you fan. There's like, we go to this, we all kind of gather at this bar. We have this kind of, stories and legacy around things. Like I was actually just telling somebody, one of the myths we had in Philly was that, when they won the World Series back in like 83, the tallest building in Philadelphia had William Penn at the top of it. And then in between 1983 and 2008, we built a ton of skyscrapers. And so everybody was like, well, that's why we haven't won anything, because William Penn isn't the tallest person in the city anymore. This is a problem. So a bunch of people got William Penn bobbleheads and put him at the top of the tallest building, because that's kind of what happens. And part of the stories we tell ourselves is also part of being a Truest fan, I think, anyway. Is that something that resonates with how you're seeing it, or am I incorrect?
Oh, no, I think you're right. On the money. The stories that come from being a baseball fan, sitting in a stadium with people that you know, or people that you care about, sharing that experience. And because baseball, there was no clock, it can last a long time. You get to talk a lot. You get to share your common history, but you get to create new history. And I can tell stories over and over again of just experiences that I've had, with my daughters, now I go to many of my games with clients who have become friends who live in Cleveland, and I don't, but I still go up there to watch as much baseball as I can. And we have those connections, and that loyalty is just there. And it's also interesting, I think, to see how sometimes the way that we view things as fans of our team, which is different than being fans of a different team, see the game or see the world through the lens. We can learn a lot through baseball.
Absolutely. Can you talk more about that?
Yes. In the book, the first lesson that I teach is on the importance of being being your own Truest fan, of believing in yourself. And all of the lessons in the book accompany a character whose name is somebody in my life, but the story isn't always told exactly the way it happened, because it is a fable. But the very first story about believing in yourself is the story about a character named Bruiser. And Bruiser is a fellow that I met in 1985 at a Cleveland Indians game in the old stadium that held 70,000 fans, and there were only 3,000 seats filled. So it was pretty empty. And I was showing off the Indians to my wife because we had just been married. And Bruiser and I turned out, sat next to each other for 2 straight games. We were about the same age. We both grew up in Cleveland. But we lived on different sides of town. He grew up and became a Hell's Angel. He was a biker, and I was anything but a biker. But as we talked about how we valued our being fans of the Indians, and the way that helped us really appreciate our backgrounds, our upbringings, the way that we care for others in our lives, we're able to carry that through. And that would have never happened, I don't think, anywhere but at a baseball game where I sat with this fellow who I've never seen since for 6 hours over the course of a couple of days. But that story stood with me all these years.
Yeah, I love that. I think, my husband is from Northern Ireland, and like baseball is not part of his life. And so when he entered my family, we made very clear that baseball was now part of his life. And he lived in Los Angeles for a couple of years and went to a couple of Dodgers games and kind of got the magic of the stadium and everything else. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It's not that I just love going to the stadium. It's that I have the app on my phone, and like, I just know all the things that are happening. So we were still living in Northern Ireland for the first several years of our marriage. And so he got to experience my passion for baseball via, like, we'd be out at bars and I'd be like, I'm sorry, there's a 2:00 game on. I need to know what's happening. And like that kind of connection. But it's been fascinating teaching him baseball. and teaching him some of the reasons that I love it and some of the things that I'm excited. We went to the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame. I've made him watch League of Their Own, I don't know, 1,400 times. And all of these kind of things. And one of the things that I love listening to him talk about, like he didn't grow up in a super sports household. And so this them versus us thing for him is really different. So like we'll be watching a game and I'll be like super into it just for the Phillies and everything else. And he'll start saying like really positive things about the other team. And I'm like, John, they're the enemy right now. And he's like, are they though? Are they? And he's joking with me to like, you know, push at me a little bit, but It's also a good reminder, you know, that everybody loves these teams. And there's people who love all the folks on that field. They're all human beings, and there's rules for the competition. And when the last strike is called, we are still humans who love things. And it feels like a good reminder of that rhythm that we can come to competition, compete our guts out. And then maybe in 2 more hours, you got to go back and do it all again. But you have to remember your humanity at all times.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think another place that you see that is when one of our favorite players gets traded to another team.
Yes.
Or one of our arch enemies or an arch enemy from another team becomes one of our players.
Yeah.
And the way that we're able to adapt them and that the way that we can come together and accept other people on different terms and just be able to experience that. You just can learn so much from the humanness that's part of baseball, because you know I get these surveys all the time from the Indians saying, like, what kind of fan are you? And every time it's like, I am a baseball fan. When I go to the stadium, I am there to watch the game. You know, you can have all the stuff you want, like bars and stuff for kids. That's great. But that's not something that I really care that much about. But at the same time, a couple of weeks ago, I happened to be at a game by myself. And I it just gave me this opportunity just to kind of reflect about lots of things that were going on in my life today or in the past. And I was still in touch with the game, but the rhythm of the game was kind of that soothing,
meditative
thing.
Almost. Yeah. Like you,
Yeah, because you can't be like super fan every game, because by about 80 games into the season, you'll be completely worn out. And then if your team makes the playoffs, you won't have any energy to root them on.
Yeah, I tell people, I'm like, listen, everybody's going to win 80 games. Everybody's going to lose 80 games. It's what you do with the rest of them that count. Like that's kind of part of the rhythm, you know?
Sure.
But I think about it too, like the rhythm of the ballpark, going back to what you were saying about Bruiser. I'm probably somewhere in between the people who go just for the bar and you. I like the social aspect of it as well, because there is a different rhythm in watching baseball on my phone, which I do a lot, and going to the stadium. And whether it's a professional stadium, a minor league stadium, we have a great New York Yankees farm team right across the river from my house. And sometimes that's a more fun game to go to, because the entertainment is, it's more bells and whistles, you know, like they have more time to do things, and you can still enjoy the game because you're physically closer to it too. And I go to little league games and high school games, and, you know, I just love the sport of it as much as the entertainment of it. But one of the things I like is the slowness of it versus, like, you can't have a conversation in an American football game because things are moving too fast. It's too loud. It's all these kind of things where it's stop and start, where the rhythm of baseball allows you to really kind of get to know the people that you're with. And maybe that's you, like you just said, maybe that's doing some self-reflection, or maybe that's having conversations with a stranger like Bruiser, where that kind of creates a bucket to hold some of life that it forces us to slow down in a way. Baseball is slow, and that's part of the thing I love about it. It forces us to kind of spend a couple hours in baseball's rhythm.
Right. And that's why it just bothers me when they're trying to find these ways to speed up the game. I was like, no, make it longer. Yeah. You know, my favorite games growing up in Cleveland were double headers, where it was one game after the other with like a 20-minute break, which they rarely do anymore. And that was just like a day of total excitement and fun. And you just never wanted it to end.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about baseball a lot. I know a lot of my viewers aren't necessarily here for the baseball. So I want to get back to your work with your clients and your book. And so kind of as you I'm sure these things are very integrated for you, the idea of the Truest Fan and working with your client. But like, if you're working with clients who aren't sports people, how do you translate this stuff to their brains?
Right. Well, the lessons themselves are really transform lots of different platforms. As I said, the lessons that I've learned and included in the book, a lot of them came from my clients. So I know these are things, these are concepts that they really find important, and they use as they're improving their businesses. They're improving themselves, becoming better versions of themselves, eliminating self-belief. So it just naturally translates. It just happens to be a little bit more fun to talk about it, kind of in the language of baseball. But it comes, the whole concept of Truest Fan just doesn't come from baseball. It comes from love of family and love of God and love of the Cleveland Indians. So it's like this three, that maybe family and God come together really easily in many people's minds, but adding a baseball team in there makes it a little bit different and just makes it more fun to talk about, and gets people also I think a little bit off of their pace, because it's so easy to ask those same questions of a client or potential client over and over, questions they've heard from somebody else. And one of my goals is to really get out from them what their biggest dreams are, what it is they're really trying to accomplish in their lives and in their businesses, so that those are the things that we can work on and not just the superficial stuff.
Yeah, God, that's so important. And how, like, I love doing in job interviews too, throwing people that curveball question. Because if you do, like, who's your favorite baseball team, or like, what's the sport you love watching, or what brings you joy on the weekends, things like that, it lets you see a piece of them that their practice self may not show you. And that's where you can get the real work done.
And I think that's absolutely right. And plus, I guess as I think about it, many of my clients are baseball fans. So some of our connections are knowing that we're not all fans of the same team and that we've had these different experiences. So it allows to tell stories and give examples.
Oh, I love that. And stories are how we learn. So that's absolutely perfect. Well, I am very mindful of the time, and you have been so generous with yours as well. So as we wrap up here, what is something you'd like to leave the audience with?
So, I really believe that we should all be Truest fans, that there's something inside of all of us that we should love ourselves, love others, and that is the most important message to send. And as I say that, I realize that is something maybe that gets said a lot, but doesn't get put into action. And people say, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? So I would just mention that one of the other lessons of being a Truest Fan is the importance of a smile. And so I would encourage anybody listening to this today, find a way to make 2 or 3 people smile. Because when you do that, you're being a Truest Fan, and you're kind of helping spread that love in a subtle way. And it's hard to have problems when you're smiling. So that would be a simple lesson, one of the lessons that comes from the Truest Fan book.
Oh my gosh. And I love tactile things that we can all try to shift our humanity a little bit deeper. That's really great. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a great conversation. Pals, if you enjoyed what Rob and I talked about and the vibe and kind of the joie de vivre, as it were, please go ahead and do the YouTube-y things and like and hit the thumbs up and subscribe and ring the bell and all those kind of things. If you love conversations about how to human a little bit deeper, I have them all the time, not only with my incredible guests on this series, but with my amazing partner, Dr. Erin Hinson, where we talk about all different ways to human and how we can all do it just a little bit better. And we'd love for you to join us on the rest of the channel as well. Again, thanks to my guest, Rob Brown, who is author of The Truest Fan. All the ways to get a hold of him are going to be in the show below the show notes of this video. The links, everything you need is going to be there. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. This has been Welcome to My World, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Great. Thanks for having me.